Good morning, everybody. It's breaking news. I was up early. I got an email from the CAC party, Insiders with Francois Legault. I'm very lucky. Many years ago, before he took power, he was abstract, not well known. People didn't realize how far Francois Legault was going to go. And he went far. He became the premier of Quebec. I was fortunate. I got in with that party earlier. I saw the form they were taking and I saw the success in it. I called, in fact, in those years, I called his majority. He just re-cemented that with a super majority. Lots of things have happened. I wrote an act for Alberta that actually written it for Texas University. It was the intellectual property I was going to present live in Texas this March 18th, long weekend, meeting a whole bunch of American justices, and I was going to go through that. In fact, I have a letter for sponsorship in the United States on an E1 green card. It's the highest one you can get. I was sponsored by Texas U to give that presentation. Things happened, as we all saw at that time, I wrote that for Alberta, but I put in every single province and the territories and how they can all insert their province or territory into the same act I wrote for Alberta. I even added all the differences, removed all things that don't apply to Quebec. Well, folks, just 24 hours ago on Twitter, Francois Legault puts out a message to Justin Trudeau and the federal government's official opposition, that's Pierre Poilievre, saying, "You won't take away Quebec's national sovereignty. National, the nation of Quebec." And he's right. He is 110% right. In fact, media is trying to slam Quebec, slam Francois Legault, and especially for Alberta separatists, you have to understand this. Quebec never signed the Charter 1982, didn't take on the amendments. Media makes grave errors, folks. They say, "Oh, Francois Legault and the notwithstanding clause, he uses it all the time, and it comes from 1982. Well, that's a lie. The Bill of Rights also comes with a notwithstanding clause. It's a federal notwithstanding clause. Everybody's going, "What? That doesn't make sense." Hear me out. The Bill of Rights limits the federal government to Section 91. It articulates it. It goes through the rights and freedoms that aren't of the Charter, but of an earlier federal override in the federal powers for Canadians underneath Section 91. That's early on in the Bill of Rights. You get to read the idea that the federal government has a notwithstanding clause. But at the very end, in Part 2 of the Bill of Rights, last section, Part 2, Section 3, it clearly states that the federal government will have no power over any provincial jurisdictional areas protected constitutionally, and that they're limited to the lists in the Bill of Rights. Language isn't there. A whole bunch of things specifically for Quebec and even First Peoples, if they were able to break from the Confederated Indian Act that's imposed on them in full genocide and human rights violations. Even the Canadian Indians could do that if they followed the American Indians and did constitutionalism, but that would require them getting at least provincial status, the same powers of a province or territory, which I believe they deserve. Now, Francois Legault, who's now facing Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. Now, hear me out, folks. Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, Laurentian elites, garbage. And a lot of Albertans are angry right now, especially Albertans, especially with the myth of this Sovereignty Act, which literally did nothing. Now everybody's messaging me here this morning. Should have turned off notifications. Folks, the federal government is trying to hamstring provinces right now, saying we are going to regulate the notwithstanding clause from 1982. They're accusing Quebec of using that. Folks, Quebec is the only province in Canada that in 1982 refused to sign the 1982 amendment. That includes the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Everything inside 1982 to do with language, education, health does not apply to Quebec because Quebec remains in the Bill of Rights. You will not find health. You will not find education. You definitely won't find culture or language or many other things found in 1982. Quebec remains in 1960 Bill of Rights, with the exact powers I list in October 25th inside the Alberta Constitutional Conventions Act. I even put every province in there, insert here, and I go through each and every repeal that is required by each and every province or territory. If the territory wasn't listed, it's because they have the exact same Executive Powers Act as certain key provinces. And of course, if you guessed Alberta, Saskatchewan, you'd be 100% correct. Inside that act, I give all the answers for Francois Legault and his Bill of Rights, his powers. Section 92 to 144 are Francois Legault, majority power in Quebec. They're his and his alone to give to the people. To do that, to take it the next step and stop Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, the same education I gave to Danielle Smith, Rachel Notley in Alberta, Scott Moe in Saskatchewan. They didn't want it. They love their Laurentian elite handlers. They love them. I'm sorry, Albertans, Saskatchewans, you're being punked. You've always been punked. And if people don't realize that by now, I don't know what to tell you. But Francois Legault, who just ended the Oath of Allegiance, which is the part one of my Constitutional Conventions Act I wrote for Alberta and any other province or territory. To begin, the power of the provincial government in power, the majority, must in their legislatures or for Quebec, the National Assembly, need to remove the Oath of Allegiance. Replace it with an oath to the people of the province. Make them people. Let's start there. It goes on into First Peoples. Quebec isn't out of the water yet. Certainly, Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, Prime Minister and official opposition leader, who is lifetime Privy Council and His Majesty's official opposition leader, can regulate Quebec. They can use the crown power of Prime Minister through Governor General to order the Supreme Court to make a decision against Quebec. Unless Francois Legault goes into part two. Repeal the Executive Powers Act, 1867 for Quebec and three other provinces, the original confederated provinces. It was done July 1st. That is the Quebec Executive Powers Act, the amendment that made Quebec into confederation. There gives all the crown power to control all the defined powers promised in 1867 to be codified constitutionally by a premier through their legislature, or in Quebec's case, Parliament of Quebec, the National Assembly. It's still a legislature. Don't kid yourselves. Francois Legault must repeal that act next, the Executive Powers Act of Quebec. Cuts the Crown's head off. Now, it doesn't end the federal government, but with the Bill of Rights 1960, that's as far as the federal government can go. And it's still tremendous. It's not the end-all and be-all, but Francois Legault can repeal that. He can deal with the First Peoples right across Quebec and at least provincial crown land, settling all the First Peoples' claims, the Treaty Indians, all the unceded Indians, absolutely the Métis, who've never been settled in Quebec, and the Inuit. They have lots north. Quebec's boundaries changed, as did Ontario. They took from the Northwest Territories. Go look at the map. They're way up there in the Arctic too. They're tremendously big provinces. You can go through the bay. You can go look at some of these island areas. Folks, Francois Legault can take all the provincial crown land, disperse it to all the Quebecois and all the First Peoples with claims in Quebec. Treaty, unceded, Métis, and Inuit. Again, 50-50. He could do that. Read the Constitutional Conventions Act. He can enter into constitutional conventions. You want to make a nation of Quebec, a nation within a nation, that's how you do it. It isn't the end-all and be-all, but it's half the equation. And actually for Quebec, it's a little more than half the equation because you look at the percentage of provincial and federal crown land. There's tremendous provincial crown land. Francois Legault can do that. Cement Section 92 to 144, and the federal government, in full view of a provincial constitution codified, can't make federal criminal laws against such a constitution in relation to 92 to Section 144. You can't. You can't make criminal code violations against those things because it's a constitution. It's protected in the Constitutional Acts of Canada since 1867, outlined in Section 58. At the end of the Canadian Constitution, it goes into criminal code, and that the criminal code couldn't go against the highest laws of the land, both federally and provincially, as laid out in Section 58. And the powers promised to the provinces, 92 to 144. And because Quebec never signed the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in 1982 or any of that amendment, their languages are protected. First Peoples, if you're listening, you're paying attention, going forward, you would never want to sign the Charter 1982. That was Pierre Elliott Trudeau and the Conservatives' trick. I look now back at things, I thought Peter Lougheed did such tremendous things, but I realize now today that he was already pursuing the federalism. He was already in bed with the federal crown. There's tremendous powers removed from the provinces in relation to the Charter 1982. It shouldn't be constitutional. It's an unconstitutional act. If we truly had a Supreme Court of Canada, they would go and say, Section 58 outlines provincial constitutions. The Charter oversteps on Section 92 to 144. They would say that, but they won't. because of these executive crown power acts that brought provinces into confederation, whether people like that or not. But the Crown King's Court, that's the justice system. Those judges are appointed and sworn to the federal crown. Even the superior courts of the provinces are modeled the exact same way. Why is that important? These are the highest courts of the provinces, highest courts of the federal system. You end up right back to King's Court. Even if you were to win a judgment, they would appeal you, send you to the higher court that is King's Court. You lose. You lose. This is why the only way not to lose, repeal the Executive Powers Acts. Quebec has their own. Ontario has their own, much different than the rest of the provinces, but still fundamentally enshrining the crown power. This is what Francois Legault has to do, and he needs to do it quick because he's already done part one. Now with his latest tweet and his attack against Justin Trudeau, and of course Pierre Poilievre too, because Pierre Poilievre is His Majesty's official opposition, and he's also a lifetime sworn Privy Council member for a very long time. Career corrupted politician. People don't know this stuff, but it's real. It's real. And we're about to see what Quebec's going to do next. I've written their way out. I wrote a way out for Alberta. Daniel Smith threw that in the garbage. Rachel Notley threw it in the garbage. They said, no, we're Crown. We love the Crown. And these aren't people. They're subjects, or there are savages. We will continue the gross human rights violations against all the First People until they are extinct or they take their place off reserve as good little subjects, good slaves, like the rest of the animals. That's what we are to them. And anyone thinking that that isn't true, go read your Constitution. I've spent much time on it. I have the best experts in the world today living who even congratulate me. You'll find Giuseppe Martinezino, and he's right out of Italy, and you go look at him. He wrote all about the Quebec question. He is the master doctorate in the world today. Greatest living expert on Quebec. He was impressed with the works I've done. He was amazed. He was amazed that Quebec went ahead and secured the removal of the Oath of Allegiance for the first time in Canadian history. Go read my Constitutional Conventions Act. Go look at the timeline. Very fortunate. I didn't expect Quebec to move on my things. I thought for sure Alberta would have moved on this. I did get a message from the Western Standard. They did it through Messenger, and if I'm not your friend, I don't see those messages. I guess you have to go through on a separate thing for Messenger. I seen that at Christmas. I'm like, oh geez. On October 26th, the Western Standard reached out to interview me on that act, but I didn't get it. I didn't get it actually just till about a week ago. I'm like, oh, I missed it. But regardless, I don't trust any of the media. I don't trust Derek Fildebrandt and his company of media. I don't trust any of them anymore. Any of them. Ezra Levant and his organization, don't trust them. I trust them as much as I've learned through my election cycle with CBC and all the rest. Had moderate success with CTV. At least I got to be interviewed. I got to be in some panels. But at the end of the day, the corporate media wouldn't allow me to debate. They gave it to the Liberals, who were not an elected leader and had less MLA candidates than I did. The Liberal Party of Alberta got to debate without an elected leader and with a smaller amount of MLAs. They had 51. We had 67. I wasn't allowed to debate. I was removed. But the Liberal Party of Alberta was allowed in under David Kahn. Because why? Because the Crown says that's a Crown party. You're of the third class, they're of the first. Get lost. I wonder what will happen if I do the 338 for the Party of the Canadian Constitutionalists in 2025. Will they say, well, we only let Maxime Bernier debate because he was a lifetime Privy Council Crown sworn. You can't come into the debates because we can't have you telling truths and myth busting our lying, filthy politicians. We can't have you do that on a mass stage for the public. That's what I think could possibly happen. As I'm looking at things, it's all starting to line up more and more and more. It's gross, it's wrong, it's terrible. Francois Legault has gone further than any other premier against the Crown. And right now, today, folks, he is about to take on literally the left and the right for the closest to Quebec's sovereignty you're ever going to see. And at least if they follow my Constitutional Convention's act to a T, you will see, at least in provinces, you will see people codified as real citizens, maybe in the province of Quebec. Now, not federally, not when they leave to other provinces or dealing with the federal government as they narrate them, but the more provinces that do this, that follow this path, the closer we're going to get to destroying the Crown. Because if Quebec released all those lands to the people, and all the people are getting tremendous wealth, and all of a sudden you're watching a boom for the First Peoples in Quebec, a boom for the Quebecois, how fast till all the other provinces are going, me too, me too, me too. And once enough of them do it, what's it going to do to the federal government in power? And everybody says, we want the other half of the lands. We don't want you controlling it anymore. We don't want you taking all the wealth and distributing it to your foreign friends. You're corrupt. We, the people, will codify the rules and how that's going to happen and how foreign powers are going to operate in our country. We're going to make the wealth for the people. All the people. How long until enough provinces go along with this, until the federal government falls or capitulates? I don't think it would be very long at all. I think if one province pursues it, and if it's Quebec, and it won't be Alberta, it's clearly not going to be Alberta with Rachel Notley or Danielle Smith. That is clear to me. No filthy conservative or filthy liberal or filthy NDP is ever going to ever see this done. It takes a party not affiliated with the mainstream parties, and CAC isn't. I think had I been born in the time of Social Credit Party, I think I could have changed Alberta's history. I believe that. I think that the work I've done would have went a long way with Social Credit Party and other parties that have graced the United Farmers. We can go on to several others. I think had this come up in their times, they would have enacted it, they would have done it. But we're never going to see that with all the federal Laurentian elite lovers, the loyalists. And folks, clearly Danielle Smith, Rachel Notley, and many others in Alberta are corrupt. So is Scott Moe. He has no intentions. He's not going to do it. So many parties aren't going to do it. They're already down with the Crown. They're already well paid, well financed to rip all of you off. If you haven't read my act yet, you should read it. You should share it. It's monumentous, and you're going to watch it unfold in Quebec. I'm sitting here like this right now in awe. I'm shocked. Is Francois Legault going to finish off? Is he going to do the part two of the act? He's going to see it all through? It's looking like it, folks. I don't like to get too excited Because politicians, 99 times out of 100, will break your heart every time. Stephen Harper broke mine. So many have broke my heart over the years because you put your faith and your trust, snap. So you get a little hardened, you don't trust them anymore. But as it stands, he dropped the oath of allegiance within just a few weeks of that act. I submitted to their party. Now they're challenging Trudeau through the Bill of Rights 1960. And if you read that, you're going to understand the second part of my Constitutional Conventions Act. And it looks like CAC party, Francois Legault, they're going to go through with it. It looks like it. Never know, but we're going to see huge breaking. Get it shared, get it out there. We're this close. We're this close. Bye now.